If you look at the pie, the U.S. income pie, the budget, and if you look at it today and look at it 20 years from now, there is nothing left in the budget except entitlement, which is basically Social Security and Medicare, Medicaid. And so if indeed this is what you mentioned earlier, where a society, for its kindness, for its long-sightedness to say we recognize a growing segment of population going to be aging and we need to take care of our people and we need to promise something. Now, I'm spinning it positively because I don't think that was how Social Security came about, because it was actually much darker than what I said. But assuming this all kindness and it's wonderful. And right now, when anyone does retirement planning, that single anchor for the average American is Social Security. And it's the only thing that will keep up with, today the new thing is inflation, right? So it not only provides you a steady stream of income, but it's also adjusted for inflation. So it's the bedrock of many people's retirement income. And we talked about 5-to-1, 3-to-1. Now it's 2-to-1 coming up to support this. Are we going to get to a 1-to-1? I mean, it's like that's unthinkable. Right. So we have all these pressure going on, and it's known as the political third rail. Nobody able to really say, well, let's not do this, or let's make it so much of a change that they're not going to get reelected. What is a political demographer or a scientist think about this real challenge in, just take America for a moment. What does that mean going forward and from an affordability standpoint?
This is the key question. It's great to kind of wrap with thinking about this, because this brings in both the demography and the politics.
Yes.
And it actually brings us back to this idea of crisis. So even though I tend to be the anti-alarmist in terms of aging, I think the place where we could warrant alarm is to say, there is no political will to change this system. The system will break, and then a new system will come out of it. What does that system look like? So I think where most analysis stops is it says, oh no, the system breaks. And then like that's the end of the story. But we have to say, and then what? And then new rules of the game are written that will hopefully be more resilient and sustainable. Does that mean that it happened seamlessly? No, somebody lost in there. So who's going to lose? And I think that's really our task to figure out, at what point does it break? Yes. And then it will break and be rebuilt in a new way. But who's going to suffer in the interim? Absolutely. And so I don't know if it will be my generation that will suffer from that. But honestly, a lot of us, I'm like on this cusp of the Gen X millennial. We have house wealth, at least. We were able to afford houses. Our student debt is not nearly as high as millennials. And then the Gen Z. So I think somebody's going to lose. Politics is all about winners and losers. Kind of wonder if it will be these younger millennials and Gen Z who are the ones that will suffer before it's rebuilt in a resilient way.
So when 40 years ago we talked about gerontocracy, right? I haven't quite seen it yet. I mean, there's shades of it, right? But gerontocracy is assuming these people are going to live longer and going to not die, and that piece of the total pie remains fairly robust in terms of the amount of people in that group. The younger generation, Gen Z, millennials, what have you, they are the other end of this barbell. They are a pretty substantial group of people. So we can talk about gerontocracy all we want. They are dying off. I mean, they can't live to 200, right? They're going to die off around 100, let's say 90. These people are growing, and they are the one who's supporting this group. So I think change is going to be inevitable. Yeah. And then it's not going to be a third rail. We're not always going to have a president that's 80 or 85. We're going to have presidents in 45, 50 who represent their view. Yep. And the Congress as well. So is it fair to say, let's not be so sanguine about, when I plan for retirement, this money is going to be around forever? Is it something that we should be thinking about? And I'm not asking for you to give investment advice here. That's not what I meant. But really thinking about, it is not always a given. There isn't a given about anything. And that the past is not about the future. The past is about the past. And is the future going to be different? And I think the way that I'm asking is I'm suggesting that there is going to be a difference.
I would just underline everything you said. Yes, I think you're exactly right. And I always joke that as a political demographer, I did approach my retirement in a really different way because I saw both the demographic numbers and I saw the politics. And so I remember getting my first job as a professor, I think I was 28, but I had been saving for retirement since I was in college because I'd been interested in this. And it's when you look through this lens, and that's how I think about demography, by the way, it's like a lens to read the world. I remember sitting down with the TIAA CREF planner and he said, first question, do you want to assume you'll have Social Security or not? I said, oh, no. We're going to assume I will not have it. Then if I have it, great. So my planning, in my late 20s started from that point. We better assume we won't have this just in case. And I feel like that's why I want people to approach the world, try on the hat of a demography or try on a pair of glasses to look at the world through a demographic lens, because it will lead you to ask different questions, look for different answers, and just see the world in a different way. And for me personally, on an income level, I said, yep, not sure that this will be here. We know it's hard to change the rules of the game. So it may collapse and be rebuilt. It may, that crisis point could be the vote that changes it. And that's okay. That's how you get people to make it not a third rail, is that you come to a crisis and you say, okay, we have to do this. So I had the same approach when thinking about national security, by the way. There's all the discussion in that realm about, well, will people be able to afford a military? Well, sure. If there's a big enough threat, they will. So there's the idea that, you can rally resources around a goal, even in an aging state.
So my final statement to that is, if you remember the European crisis over a decade ago, the great financial crisis, and people are not willing to change until they are facing the end of the barrel of a gun. And that's human behavior. So unless and until it is absolutely need to change, we're not going to change. And that is very unfortunate, because people like you have been, I don't want to say shouting, but been very clear about what are some of the clear direction, and that we need to be thoughtful about it, and how we anticipate it and do something about it while we still can. The reality is that in my field, people have undersaved, underinvested, under everything. And they say, well, but we still have Social Security, right? And that I can still move to some lower cost countries and live a decent life because I just have that check mail over there, until that check is gone, or until that check is cut in half. And those are not only possibility, probability is really the reality thinking, because we are already a very indebted country. We're able to get away with it for many reasons, that we are the reserve currency of the world. We are the strongest country in the world, and people are willing to subsidize us. And one day in a multipolar world, maybe the willingness to subsidize is diminishing.